Kendall goes back to her fishing hometown to get some inspiration for her latest architectural designs. She gets closer to Zach and helps him gel with the community so he can buy her dad's boat. Right before the lunchtime launch, Kendall hopes the partners like her design of the restaurant. Her assistant Maggie is sure they will since everything is perfect. Kendall is nervous about the final reveal and ducks when Maggie asks her to look out. A man who almost hit her with wooden planks apologizes to Kendall. He's impressed with her quick reaction and asks if strangers usually hit her like this. Maybe they do, because her answer is vague. He is disappointed that yet another fancy place for people to eat is opening in Seattle. He points to his fish keychain and claims he only eats what he can catch. He leaves when the owner of Glow begins her speech about the new restaurant. She thanks Kendall's company, Seacoast Architects, for the amazing design. When the inauguration is complete, Maggie asks if Kendall wants to celebrate. Kendall is still working on her proposal for her meeting with Edward Kent. He owns Clove, the most prestigious restaurant in town. Kendall is nervous since she hasn't designed such an upscale restaurant before. Maggie knows Kendall will come up with a great plan and offers any help. Kendall asks Maggie to enjoy while she finishes the proposal. Edward is busy on call during his meeting with Kendall. He owns 3 restaurants and wants to hire Kendall for his 4th. He had a hard time with the last architect and wants someone who can envision his design. That sounds promising. He asks for her sources of inspiration and is impressed with her knowledge of classic and contemporary artists. Her firm has great reviews, and Kendall has even been voted as the best of Seattle in City Design magazine. This seems pretty perfect. He explains he wants something modern yet homey. He wants to open in 2 months, so Kendall starts describing what she has planned. Her vision sounds great to Edward, so he asks her for a mock-up in a week. Kendall's brother Billy loves that she takes him to fancy restaurants in the city. She is glad he can enjoy the perks while she works all the time. Billy loves the filet at the restaurant and wishes he could cook like this. Kendall assures him he's the best chef she knows and that he shouldn't settle for being a sous chef. She asks him to dream bigger and thinks about his own restaurant. She already knows she will be his biggest customer. He discusses a new recipe he has been working on for the Mystic Bay Big Catch Festival. This might be their dad, Lee's, last festival if he retires. Billy is sure he is planning to because he heard him discussing with Ron about selling their boat, Sweet Serenity. Billy doesn't think Ron is the right buyer since he sells boats for parts. Kendall also knows their dad is stubborn, but Billy believes only she can talk him out of anything. She gets another message from Edward, who is annoying her about the proposal. She knows a week is too soon for submission, but she really needs him as a client. Billy thinks she should come home to Mystic Bay earlier since she gets her best ideas there. Kendall knows she can manage that and is excited to be home. Maggie has sent the drawing she left for Edward, but Kendall still has doubts. She thinks he might want something flashier and wants to brainstorm that week. Lee is glad to have her back and asks about her life in the city. She has been obsessed with work and is worried about Edward. Lee knows spending time on Sweet Serenity will inspire her like it always does. Kendall decides to discuss the topic of him selling the boat. No use waiting for the right time, it seems. Lee doesn't want to wait for the perfect offer either, and is glad Ron is taking the boat off his hands. He's not out at sea yet because he has run out of bait. He asks her to get enough for tomorrow's catch from Benny's shop. Benny is glad to see Kendall back and is sorting through a lot of marina permits. She wants 2 bags of bait, but a new fisherman has already bought him out. Benny feels he's a hard nut to crack, but Kendall is sure she can convince whoever he is. This seems ominous. The new fisher turns out to be Zach, who almost hit her with wooden planks in Seattle. What a funny coincidence. Kendall explains that Mystic Bay is her hometown, while Zach only moved there a few months ago. He thinks the town is good for expanding his fishing business, but he isn't as excited about it as she is. Kendall politely asks him to share some bait, but Zach hardly has enough for his trip to sea. He's still happy he can't keep up with the demand. Kendall explains she needs it for Lee, and tries to make him understand that everyone in this town helps each other. This understanding might take a while to sink in. Zach is sure Lee doesn't want his help. He has made Lee an offer for the boat that Lee firmly rejected. Kendall and Lee arrive at the restaurant where Billy is the sous chef. Ariel comes to them with her seashell necklaces, and Lee explains that she just moved into town with her dad. Ariel is fundraising for her paddling team, so Lee offers to buy some necklaces. Kendall wonders if Ariel is participating in the competition. Ariel brags about being the captain of her dad's ship and catching a lot of fish. Kendall soon realizes Zach is her father. Who could have guessed that? Kendall still informs Ariel about the big catch and the Best Fisherman Award. Ariel wants to participate in all of that, but Zach doesn't seem eager. Billy is also excited about the Chowder Showdown, but Zach thinks they don't have time for it. Who left the Grinch out so early? When they leave, Lee asks Billy to prepare for a lot of work on the boat. He makes it clear he wants to retire soon. Kendall doesn't want him to sell the boat for parts when there's so much family history. Lee insists on taking the offer from someone he knows, and Ron seems the best. Billy knows about Zach's offer too, and thinks it's better for them. Zach is offering slightly less money, but he will use the boat for his business and not sell parts. Billy knows Zach understands the heritage of boats, and their sweet serenity will be safe with him. Kendall knows Lee isn't selling it to Zach because he's not really friendly. I can't argue with that. Billy still feels Kendall is some magic worker who can convince Zach to embrace community spirit. They know once Lee likes him, he will consider his offer. Kendall finds Zach right before he's heading out for a sail. She thinks he's tying the anchor knots wrong and shows him her family's way. He doesn't like her overstepping and wants to do his own thing. She wants him to understand how important it is to appreciate when a neighbor offers help. It looks like he is a hard nut to crack. She's sure he will never fit in with the townsfolk with this attitude. Before she knows it, they have left the shore. Kendall misses being on her dad's boat, and even Zach admits he fell in love with Sweet Serenity the first time he saw it. She asks him to make an offer to Lee again, but Zach doesn't want to cause trouble. He admits he's having trouble fitting in with the community. He spends all his time making sure Ariel has everything she needs. Kendall knows Lee and Zach are both stubborn, but thinks Lee can be convinced that Zach is a true member of society. She admits she wants to help him because she needs to save her boat. She explains her family legacy and how she doesn't want Lee to sell it for parts. She feels their destination is closer than what he has in mind. She asserts that she knows these waters better, and he can tell she's used to being a boss. She makes a bet where the loser will buy coffee if the place she suggested isn't good. He thanks her for helping him with the sale that day, and thinks they had a splendid catch because of her. He also keeps his promises and plans to buy her the fancy coffee she wants. Ariel comes to them with her paddling coach, Mrs. Johnson. She is very impressed with the giant crab Kendall found. Ariel asks Kendall to join them for dinner, and even Zach insists. It's hard to say no to that. Kendall gets another idea and has the perfect pot in mind for their crabs. Kendall has decided to make this a dinner with her family so Zach can get closer to Lee. Billy comes earlier and claims Lee stopped by Laney's shop on the way. Zach and Kendall head inside to get extra chairs, and she's impressed by his pottery and woodwork. She loves how talented he is and thinks he has represented Mystic Bay perfectly. She's sure people in town would love to see this side of him. Kendall thinks Laney, who owns a bakery in town, will love Zach's breadboard. Zach also loves Laney's bread and wants her to have it. Kendall plans to go with him to Laney's shop the next day. Lee joins them soon with dessert and talks about how eager he is to retire soon. Zach hands him a plate, and they discuss their love for food. Billy wants them to try his chowder for the potluck on Sunday. He's working on a secret recipe that he can't even share with Ariel. Lee thinks if Ariel decides to compete with Billy, she will easily beat him, because that is surely a possibility. Edward has looked at the draft and doesn't think there's much edge to Kendall's designs. He wants to set new trends like digital innovation. Kendall promised to work on the redesign that night and send it by the morning. Kendall needs to leave early for work, but promises to meet him at Laney's the next day. She takes him through the bike path and shows him around town before heading to the bakery. Kendall introduces Zach to Laney properly. Laney only knows him as the mystery man everyone discusses. Zach insists her bread is the best he has and gifts her the board. Laney loves the gesture, so Kendall asks her to give their regards to Lee when he stops by. Kendall is sure Zach is now one step closer to being a true member of their town. She knows word spreads like wildfire, and Laney will surely praise him to Lee. Zach wants to discuss his offer again, but is waiting for the right time. He loves how much Billy and Ariel have bonded, and he's also giving her spices for her chowder. Kendall invites him over to pick up the spices, and wants to show him what she knows about chowder too. It looks like the town is very friendly. Zach feels she must love the boat to spend so much time with him willingly. Kendall explains that it's more about her family's legacy. Generations before her, Dad have had adventures on the boat, including her mom. Even if she moved to the city, the boat is still the anchor of who she is. How poetic. It's also the only piece of memory of her mom, so it's very special. Zach agrees to do whatever he can to save the boat for her. Maggie has not heard back from Edward but feels Kendall seems more relaxed. Kendall thinks it's the fresh sea air, or it could be a fresh person. Zach comes over and admires a sketch of the boat Kendall made in high school. She misses drawing, and even Lee remembers how good Sweet Serenity has been to him. But he feels it's time for new adventures. Zach praises how well Kendall handled the catch with him on the boat. He admires everything Lee has taught her. That seems like impressive buttering. Kendall asks Billy to get out of the kitchen because he's competing against Zach's team for the chowder. Billy claims he's only there to leave spices for Ariel, but reminds them he's nearby if they need expert advice. Zach has never made chowder, so Kendall starts with something basic like her grandmother's recipe. They start cooking and enjoy the process. A little too much, maybe. Zach makes her try his chowder, but she feels it needs some work. Lee really likes what he made, and Kendall suggests they should take the extras for the fisherman's potluck. Lee explains that fishermen bring extras from their catch every afternoon and share their goods with the shop owners. Lee thinks it's one of the best local traditions, so Zach wants to try it too, obviously. Benny asks them to join for lunch and explains what he has planned for dinner. Kendall and Zach have just eaten, but Benny asks Zach to join them any other time. Zach thinks everyone is friendlier to him when Kendall is around. She knows it's only because people are eager to help and care about each other. She misses all this in Seattle, which is why she always comes back for the festival. Zach used to have a harvest festival in Portland, which he visited every year. But when Ariel's mom passed away, he wanted to make sure the business could support the family. He moved to Mystic Bay because he loves a town full of history, families, and boats like Kendall's. It's also smaller than Portland, so he knew Ariel would find it easier to make friends. Zach has always wanted Ariel to have happy childhood memories of festivals and fun like he did. Kendall understands the concept of a fresh start because she moved to Seattle after her mom passed away. She didn't think it was possible to be a real architect in a small town. But she now realizes how fast-paced her life has become because of the move. Zach explains that he inherited his boat, Miss KC, from his dad. A blizzard damaged it right before he got it, and he had to build it up from scratch. He didn't want to get a new boat because nothing compares to the cedar in the older boats like Sweet Serenity. Kendall knows her dad would love how passionate he is about boats. She feels he's warming up to him and thinks they should visit him on Sweet Serenity. Lee is glad to have them on board. Kendall points out how much Zach knows about fishing from his father. Zach asks about the hooks Lee uses to bundle the nets, which are specially ordered from Benny. He just makes them for Lee, but Lee offers to give some to Zach. Edward finally gets back to Kendall and still doesn't like the designs. What a surprise. He wants something bold, while her designs are too traditional. She promises to rework again and send the changes back. She comes back to find Zach and Lee bonding over the harness. Zach plans to head out to the sea with Ariel that afternoon and invites Kendall. When he leaves, Kendall urges Lee to reconsider Zach's offer. She knows Ron is offering more money, but thinks Zach can take better care of their boat. Lee also feels Zach is better than he thought and decides to consider it. Lee takes her to a statue she made, and they remember how his wife used to love Kendall's creations. Kendall reminds Lee of her because she was an amazing artist. He remembers going to Europe with her, where she dragged him to every art museum in Paris. He almost considered moving there, but Kendall's mom convinced him to come back to Mystic Bay. She loved the town as much as Kendall did, and knew she didn't have to go anywhere else to work. Lee feels Kendall will be great at whatever she does, as long as she puts her heart into it. Kendall joins Zach and Ariel on Miss KC and assures them she has a camera if they get a big catch. Zach is glad to be in Mystic Bay because he knows it's great for fishing families. Ariel feels something, so Zach and Kendall encourage her to pull it through. She catches a huge fish, and Kendall is sure she can win the festival with that. Zach buys Kendall the coffee he promised, and is glad he's spending more time with Lee. She thinks Zach and Lee have a lot in common, while he feels Ariel and her do too. He knows Ariel loves spending time with Kendall, and they discuss how great she was on the boat. Lee remembers all the great experiences he had on the boat. Zach apologizes for getting off on the wrong foot with him. He wants to discuss his offer again because he wants to honor his family. Lee admits he's considering it only because Kendall seems to like him a lot. They discuss how Kendall is amazing, and that she always has a plan. No arguments there, since her plan seems to be working. Ariel is getting into the spirit of the festival after Kendall tells her a lot about its history. She wants to visit Kendall in Seattle and thinks she's amazing. Billy and Kendall bring something for Lainey and find Lee chatting with her. Billy wants to try some of her cookies, but she has a special one saved for Lee. Kendall and Billy notice a vibe between them and leave them alone. Even Lee thinks they might be onto them. Kendall brings some decorations for Benny, and Zach also comes back for his harbor permit. Benny claims he doesn't have extra room for him because the marina is full. Zach is about to leave, but Kendall stops him. She asks about Bennett's preparations for the festival. He has been so busy with the new boats that he hasn't had time to finalize the festival plans. Kendall offers to help Benny if he grants Zach the permit. She draws the whole plan and explains what Benny needs to do. Benny is so impressed that he immediately hands Zach the permit. Zach wants to thank Kendall for lunch and takes her to a picnic spot to catch it. They row to an island Kendall has never been to. He asks about her mom, and Kendall claims she knows everything about art because of her. Kendall remembered how much she loves sketching only after she got back in town. Zach helps her with the catch and feels she should do something that makes her happy. Kendall admits she loves designing for family-run businesses more, but doesn't know if she can do that now. Zach plans to do more business from land if Lee sells the boat to him, so he can spend more time with Ariel. He admits Mystic Bay is starting to feel more like home and thinks it's because of her. He tries to kiss her, but Kendall's phone rings. "Take a break, Edward." She nervously tries to pick it up, but the phone slips into the water from her hand. Zach feels bad for being clumsy, but Kendall anyway planned to turn off the speaker so they wouldn't be disturbed. But the moment has passed, and Kendall is sure she can get another one later. Kendall tries to convince Lee over dinner that he needs to sell the boat to Zach. She wants him to retire and sail the Caribbean islands like he planned. Lee has already warmed up to Zach and even loves Ariel. Kendall gets a call from Zach, who invites her to see a model he's working on. He also offers dessert, so Lee teases Kendall about Zach. Kendall thinks Zach has done a great job raising Ariel. He admits it takes a while for him to let people in because he's protective of her. But thanks to Kendall, he can finally see how caring the people in this town are. Lainey recently saved a special cookie for Ariel, and even Benjamin waved at him. Kendall knows this is because the townsfolk take time to let people in, but they have a lot of heart to give. He tries to kiss her again, but Ariel calls out to ask Zach to tuck her in. Not again. Lee calls Zach to Benny's shop and hands over the papers for Sweet Serenity. Both his children have vouched for Zach, and even Lee believes he will carry on his family's legacy. Zach feels grateful and promises to take good care of the boat. Maggie comes looking for Kendall, so Lee offers to take her. Maggie has been trying to reach her because Edward is still not happy with her designs. Kendall promises to take care of it, and shares another bad news. Sweet Serenity has been damaged because of the storm, and is in the worst condition yet. Benny has yet another crisis, because the deliveries for the festival have been mixed up. He knows they might have to cancel the festival if the booths aren't set up that day. Kendall doesn't want them to give up so easily, and thinks they can fix anything together. Kendall already has a plan and thinks they can use the tents and tables for the booth. She knows they can also rebuild the stage for the potluck and the big catch competition. Zach can help with the woodwork and gives her the design on paper that she made for Benny. Kendall doesn't believe he saved her design. Because this is the time to get cheesy, right? She remembers the immediate problem and explains how everyone can pitch in to set things up. She also plans to ask Ariel to make signs from seashells so people learn about their new location. The festival is the next day, but they do a little pre-game ritual. How do they have time for all this? Zach knows she has a lot on her plate with a work emergency too. He assures her she's not alone and wants to help her in any way. It's cute when he holds her face, but she reminds him to focus on the festival, like we need another reminder. Edward is disappointed, but wants to give Kendall one more chance at the redesign. Kendall shares her frustration with Lee, and doesn't know what Edward thinks is missing in her design. She knows she can lose this job if she doesn't get it right. She wants to go back to simpler things before she starts working with fancy people. Lee knows she's the best architect and will surely figure something out. Zach gets an anchor woodwork he made for Kendall, so it would inspire her. She realizes this is exactly what she needs for her design. She realizes there is no foundation in her designs, and that she needs an anchor. She hugs Zach and he tries to kiss her again, but she asks him to get back to the festival prep. Seriously, till when? She starts working on the new design. She explains to Edward that she wants it built around an anchor statue. He wants to take a closer look and get back to her. Kendall takes Lee for a walk, and they find Zach sitting with Ron. They hear them discussing parts, so Kendall and Lee assume he is going to destroy Sweet Serenity. Lee is disappointed, but Kendall feels worse that she stood up for Zach. Kendall is less excited about the festival because of Zach. Billy thinks she doesn't know the whole story, but she's in no mood to confront Zach. Maggie has heard back from Edward. He loves her design so much that he wants her to even work at a sister restaurant. Kendall doesn't look too happy and claims it's because it hasn't sunk in yet. Zach tries to talk to Kendall, but she's very cold to him. Benny announces Ariel and Zach as the winners of the big catch competition for the biggest Pacific salmon. The Chowder Showdown winner is Billy, the 5th time in a row. Lainey explains that Billy finally revealed his secret ingredient. The rain ruined the tomato he was growing, so Zach offered some from his fridge. He doesn't seem so bad after all. It's time to award the Mystic Bay Fisherman to the person who shows the best community spirit. Ariel bags this award too for bringing everyone together with her seashell signs. When Kendall comes to congratulate her, Ariel wants to share her crown. Kendall thinks Ariel deserves it more and will fit in perfectly with the community. She needs to get back to pack for her train to Seattle and ignores Zach completely. She suddenly decides she wants to turn down Edward's offer and start something new. She doesn't have a plan, but knows someone in Seattle who can hire Maggie as a junior designer. Maggie doesn't know if she's ready for it, but Kendall believes in her. Kendall is still packing so she can tie up some loose ends in Seattle. She has seen an empty storefront in Mystic Bay and wants to open a restaurant with Billy. She wants to meet Lee at the marina before she leaves but thinks the Zach ship has sailed. Or has it? Lee informs Kendall that she was right about Zach all along. He was talking to Ron so he could get materials to fix the boat. He is sure the boat is in good hands and gives them privacy. Kendall is surprised because she assumed Zach didn't care. Zach reminds her he started putting people before business because of her. She admits she also turned down her job with Edward so she could design something from her heart. Zach admits he only saw the beauty of the town because of her and wants her in his life. He finally kisses her, and they celebrate their one-year anniversary with the opening of her restaurant, Sweet Serenity 2. Lee and Lainey are preparing for their trip to the Caribbean, and Ariel is ready with her fresh catch of the day. Zach gifts Kendall an anchor keychain with a ring hanging from it. He bends down on a knee and asks her to marry him. She agrees and kisses him because he's her anchor now.